third unit in history, which is rural life and society. Synopsis of the lesson. In this session, we are going to see the following topics. The first one is introduction part. Then we are going to see the land revenue policy under the British. Next, we are going to see permanent settlement. Next, we are going to see salient features of the permanent settlement. Then, we are going to see merits of permanent settlement, demerits of permanent settlement, Ryotwari system. Then we are going to see salient features of the Ryotwari system. Then we are going to see effects of the Ryotwari system. Then we are going to see Mahalwari system. Next, we are going to discuss about salient features of the Mahalwari settlement. Then let's discuss about effects of the Mahalwari settlement. Then finally, we are going to see impact of the British land revenue system on the cultivators. Students, let's begin the lesson, rural life and society. In the pre-colonial period, that is, before the British arrival, Indian economy was predominantly an agrarian economy. That means, Indian economy is fully dependent on the agriculture. Not only agriculture, the primary occupation of the people and even industries like textiles, sugar, oil. So the people depend on these type of industries before the British arrival. Then, once the British arrived into India, they got the Diwani rights, that is, the right to collect the tax after the victory of Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. So, the British government in India did not adopt a pro-Indian agriculture and land revenue policy, but they introduced new land revenue policies. So now let's see the land revenue policy under the British. The land revenue policy under the British is classified into three. The first one is permanent settlement, and then Ryotwari system, and then Mahalwari system. The first one is permanent settlement. Permanent settlement was introduced by Lord Cornwallis. Then Ryotwari system. Ryotwari system was introduced by Thomas Munro. Then Mahalwari system. Mahalwari system was introduced by Lord William Bentinck. Now let's see about each settlement in detail. So first one is permanent settlement. Permanent settlement was introduced by Lord Cornwallis. Now let's see the features and merits and demerits of this settlement. When Robert Clive obtained the Diwani of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa in 1765, there used to be an annual settlement, that is of land revenue. So, Robert Clive, he obtained the Diwani right. Diwani right means the right to collect tax from the people of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa in 1765. They imposed an annual settlement, that is, they have to settle per year annually. Warren Hastings changed it from annual to quinquennial, that is 5 years, and back to annual again. So, Robert Clive, he imposed for annually to pay the settlement per year. So, Warren Hastings, he changed it from annual to quinquennial, which means 5 years. In 5 years, they can settle money. and again he changed to annual. Then during the time of Cornwallis, a 10 years, that is decennial settlement was introduced in 1793 and it was known permanent settlement. So during the time of Cornwallis, a 10 years, which means decennial settlement, so which means we can pay the tax once for 10 years. It was introduced in 1793 and it was known permanent settlement. Then permanent settlement were made in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, Varanasi division of Uttar Pradesh and northern Karnataka, which roughly covered 19% of the total area of British India. So, permanent settlement was implemented in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, Varanasi division of Uttar Pradesh and northern Karnataka. So, permanent settlement is also known as, that is, it was known by different names like Zamindari, Jagirdari, Malguzari and Bisvidari. Next, we are going to see salient features of the permanent settlement. So, what is the main features of the permanent settlement? So, the first feature is the zamindars were recognized as the owners of land as long as they paid the revenue to the East India Company regularly. So, according to permanent settlement, the zamindars were considered as the land owners. So, as long as they pay the tax to the British East India Company, the zamindars were considered as the land owners. So, this is the first feature. The second feature is the zamindars acted as the agent of the government for the collection of revenue from the cultivators. So, the zamindars, they act as the agent between the people and the government. So, they will collect the tax from the people and they will pay it to the government. So, the zamindars acted as the agent of the government for the collection of revenue from the cultivators. The third feature is the amount of revenue that the zamindars had to pay to the company was firmly fixed and would not be raised under any circumstances. The fourth feature is they gave 10 by 11 of the revenue collected by them from the cultivator to the government. So, they gave 10 by 11 of the revenue collected by them from the cultivator to the government. So, only 1% will be given to the cultivators, that is the farmers. The fifth feature is the zamindars would grant patta, which means written agreements to the ryots. Ryots means farmers. So, the farmers, which means the ryots, became tenants. Tenants means they will rent the land, so they have to pay the rent to the zamindars. Then, since they were considered the tillers of the soil, means especially tillers means they will break the soil, in other words, they will cultivate the soil. Since farmers are referred as tillers, the sixth feature is all judicial powers were taken away from the zamindars. So, all the law and orders were taken away from the zamindars and it came under the control of the British East India Company. Next, we are going to see merits of permanent settlement. the first merit is, under this system, which means under this permanent settlement, many of the waste lands and forests became cultivatable lands. The next advantage, which means merit, the zamindars became the owner of the land. Then the zamindars were made free from the responsibility of providing justice. The next merit is, the zamindars remained faithful to the British government. Then this system secured a fixed and stable income for the British government. Then we are going to see demerits of permanent settlement. The first demerit, which means the first disadvantage, is the British government had no direct contact with the cultivators. Then the rights of the cultivators were ignored and they were left at the mercy of the zamindars. Then the peasants were almost treated as serfs. Here peasants means farmers. So the farmers were almost treated as serfs, means slaves. Then this system was made the zamindars lethargic and luxurious. Lethargic means very irresponsible. Luxurious means it made very rich. So this system was made the zamindars lethargic, means very irresponsible, and luxurious means it made very rich. The next disadvantage is many conflicts between the zamindars and the peasants. Peasants means the farmers arose in rural Bengal. Next, we are going to see Ryotwari system. Ryotwari system was introduced by Thomas Munro and Captain Reed in 1820. So, Ryotwari system was introduced by Thomas Munro and Captain Reed in 1820. Then, major areas of introduction of Ryotwari system included Madras, Bombay, parts of Assam, Coorg, provinces of British India. By Ryotwari system, the rights of ownership was handed over to the peasants. Here peasants means farmers. So the major areas where this type of system implemented were Madras, Bombay, parts of Assam and Coorg, provinces of British India. By Ryotwari system, the rights of ownership was handed over to the peasants, which means the farmers. Then British government collected taxes directly from the peasants. Peasants means farmers. Initially, 1/2 of the estimated produce was fixed as rent. This assessment was reduced to 1/3 of the produce by Thomas Munro. The revenue was based on the basis of the soil and the nature of the crop. So, in Ryotwari system, British government collected taxes directly from the peasants. Peasants means farmers. Initially, 1/2 of the estimated produce was fixed as rent. Then, this assessment was reduced to 1/3 of the produce by Thomas Munro. So, he reduced to 1/3 of the produce. Then, the revenue was based on the basis of the soil and the nature of the crop, which means the tax was imposed on the basis of the soil and the nature of the crop. Then, rents would be periodically revised, generally after 20 to 30 years. Then, the position of the cultivators became more secure. In this system, the settlement was made between the government and the ryots, which means the farmers. In fact, the government later claimed that the land revenue was rent and not a tax. Next, we are going to see salient features of the Ryotwari system. So, what is the main features of the Ryotwari system? The first feature is revenue settlement was done directly with the ryots. Here, ryots means the farmers. So, revenue settlement was done directly with the farmers. Then, measurement of field and an estimate of produce was calculated. Then, government fixed the demand at 45 to 55% of the produce. Next, we are going to see effects of the Ryotwari system. The first effect is, in most areas, the land revenue fixed was excessive. The ryots, which means the farmers were hardly left with bare maintenance even in the best of seasons. So, in most of the areas, the land revenue was very high. So, the farmers cannot able to pay the tax. So, they were left with bare hands. Even though they had the best season, they left with bare hands because they can't able to pay the tax to the British government. The next effect is, under this system, the government exploited the farmers instead of zamindars. Next, we are going to learn about Mahalwari system. Mahalwari system, a brainchild of Holt Mackenzie, was modified version of the Zamindari settlement introduced in the Ganga Valley, the northwest province, parts of the central India and Punjab in 1822. So, Mahalwari system was the idea of the British general Holt Mackenzie. It was considered as the modified version of the Zamindari settlement, which means permanent settlement. It was introduced in the year 1822. Then, Lord William Bentinck was to suggest radical changes in the Mahalwari system by the guidance of Robert Martin's Bird in 1833. So, Lord William Bentinck, he made some changes in the Mahalwari system along with the guidance of Robert Martin's Bird in 1833. Initially, the state share was fixed 2/3 of the cross produce, which means 2/3. Bentinck therefore reduced to 50%. So, Lord William Bentinck, he made certain changes to the Mahalwari system and he reduced it to 50%. Then, the village as a whole, through its headman or lumberdar, was required to pay the revenue. So, this system was first adopted in Agra and Awadh and later extended to other parts of the United Provinces. The burden of all this heavy taxation finally fell on the cultivators. Next, we are going to see salient features of the Mahalwari settlement. So, what is the main features of the Mahalwari settlement? The first one is the Lambadar acted as intermediaries between the government and the villagers. Here, the Lambadar means headman of the village acted as intermediaries between the government and the villagers. Then, it was a village-wise assessment. one person could hold a number of villages. Then the village community was the owner of the village common land. Then the village land belonged to the village community. Next, we are going to see effects of the Mahalwari settlement. The Lambadar, which means the head of the village, enjoyed privileges which was misused for their self-interest. Then this system brought no benefit to the cultivators. Then it was a modified version of the Zamindari system and benefited the upper class in villages. Next, we are going to see impact of the British land revenue system on the cultivators. So the first one is, a common feature of all the settlements was the assessment and the maximize income from land. It resulted in increasing land sales and disposition. So the main motive of all the three settlements imposed by the British East India Company was to increase the income from the land. It didn't do any favor for the farmers. So when they imposed high tax for the farmers, they can't able to pay it. So because of that, they lost their land. That is called disposition of land. The peasants were overburdened with taxation. Here, the peasants means the farmers were overburdened with taxation due to the tax burden and famines. In general, the people suffered in poverty and burdened with debts. They had to seek the moneylenders who became rich and acquired lands from the peasants. Peasants means the farmers. So because of overtax or famine means drought, they were not able to pay the tax. So they had to seek the moneylenders who became rich and acquired lands from the peasants, which means the farmers. Then the zamindars, moneylenders and lawyers exploited the poor peasants. Poor peasants means the poor farmers. The stability and continuity of the Indian villages was shaken. Then cotton industries disappeared on account of the import of British goods and the peasants, which means the farmers had nothing to supplement their income. So even cottage industries, that is small scale industries, disappeared on account of the import of British goods, and the peasants, which means the farmers, had nothing to supplement their income. Then the old body of custom was replaced by new apparatus of law, courts, fees, lawyers and formal procedures. So the total custom was changed because of this land revenue system introduced by the British. Then the British policy proved advantageous only to the government of a privileged section of the society at the cost of the cultivators. So the British policy proved advantageous only to the government of a privileged section of the society as well as the upper class people, not for the cultivators. I have enclosed the classwork instructions in the PDF. Kindly refer it. So now we have reached the end of this session. Thank you.